Some of you probably hear the clocks chiming, so that tells me it's time to begin. So welcome, Voyagers, one and all. Welcome to Singapore. Welcome to the inaugural tour of Singapore After Dark. My name is Imran, and I will be hosting you on this walkabout this evening. I have to be a little bit careful. There's no fence over here by the river, so I could fall in. And the last thing that I want is to live streamed all across the world a live mishap falling into the river. The river, although it's not very deep, is quite dangerous. People do drown when they fall in. Once in a while, we have some crazy person drinks too much in all the bars behind me, which we will also see, and falls in, or sometimes even jumps in, thinking that he or she can do the swim to the other side. So anyway, here we are. Let me first introduce myself. So my name is Imran, and I am a licensed guide here in Singapore for the last 15 years approximately. However, this is my second life. In fact, my first life was as a banker, and I spent many years working on this side of the Singapore River. We are on the south bank of the Singapore River, which is the commercial area of Singapore. When the colonial period started in Singapore in 1819, the South Bank, which is where we are, was declared or dedicated as the commercial zone, and the North Bank, to which we will cross using the oldest bridge across the Singapore River that still exists, was the Civic District, where much of the colonial administration buildings, not just for Singapore, but for all of Malaya. Primarily, the two other cities we're talking about are Malacca and Penang. So these comprise the three main Straits settlements: Singapore, Penang, and Malacca. So the Singapore River, very important to Singapore's history, and it's a part of its lifeblood. It is where Singapore gets its trading hub status from in the early days, even pre-colonial times. And we also will see by the end of the tour, or by the end of my walk, the famous Merlion. Maybe some of you have already seen it on some other tours in Singapore. Perhaps some of you have even seen it in person. But anyway, enough talking, and let's begin. Of course, this is a Hago experience, which means please share your comments, your thoughts, your questions on anything in the chat. If for some reason I miss a question, please repost it and I will answer it, even if it's a sticky one. All right? Okay, great. It's all in the Hago family anyway. All right, so let's carry on. So I mentioned this is the Singapore River, and we are starting at the South Bank. Now, if you look in front of you, and you see, and hopefully we'll get some nice postcard opportunities here. Let me get the Standard Chartered logo out of the way. If you see the bridge at the front, that is the bridge that we will be crossing, which is called the Kavanaugh Bridge. It dates from the 1860s. Interesting story about that, which I will tell you when we're on the bridge. And on its right, you can see a nicely lit up building. Perhaps you can even see the name of the building. It's the Fullerton Hotel. In the colonial period, that was built as the General Post Office. And it is very, very close to what used to be the main quay for boats coming in and ships coming in from overseas. So there was a functional pneumatic pipe all the way from this post office building to the Collier Quay. All right, I will give you one zoom in case you are interested to take a postcard zoomed in before I begin the walk. All right. Now, before we begin, I will slowly also pan it to my left and show you a few other buildings which are not really so visible from here. However, just to give you an idea of what all we will see. So right in front of you, hidden by all the trees right there, that was the old municipal building. That was the main administrative building for the Malayan settlements, and it is the Asian Civilizations Museum today. At the back of it, you see a few buildings. Most of the tall skyscrapers that you're seeing at the back of that are hotels. However, later on, we will see buildings of the business district as well, because that's where we are. So when we turn around, and this area historically was the business district. This, where I am walking, was indeed known as Commercial Square, later renamed as Raffles Place. I'm going to try and walk close to the river so we get a better view. You see, we take quite a lot of pains over here to get the lighting right, excuse me, and hopefully that will give you a few postcard opportunities as well. We are seeing also the return of tourism here in Singapore now. As of a few weeks ago, travelers are allowed to enter without quarantine, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated. There are some conditions associated with the unvaccinated, but basically it's free. Dawn, the Raffles Hotel is a little bit further out. We'll get a little close to it. It's not too far from the City Hall and Supreme Court building, which we will see later on. So this bridge was basically brought in pieces from Scotland, and it was reassembled over here in Singapore, and it is named after one of the early governors of the settlement, Kavanaugh, known as Kavanaugh Bridge. The first pedestrian crossing. Until then, and of course also used for carriages and things, until then it was a very lucrative trade for boatmen to take people across from the south to the north bank and vice versa. We do have a little bit of art here in this area, and that is this is referencing the city's history or the area's history, where this was also an area of warehouses and business people, merchants who basically traded many things, primarily at a later stage rubber, after rubber had been discovered or invented. Discovered, I guess, is the better word. So this is the Fullerton Hotel and the former General Post Office building. We'll get a better view of it across the bridge, but let me show you a sign. So 3 centum weight. The centum weight is approximately 100 pounds. Yeah, Dawn, it is a nice post office, and that's why it was converted into a hotel. It remained functional. There were many levels, so not all of it was being used as a post office, but it even had a club right at the top. And during the Japanese occupation of Singapore, during the Second World War, part of it was converted into an officer club. There are many rumors that this hotel is haunted because immediately prior to the Japanese invasion, this was used as a hospital. So quite a lot of people died due to unnatural causes in there. And people will say that the most common occurrence is someone shaking your feet while you are asleep. So whoever it is in there, or whoever they are, they seem to have a thing for feet. Let me turn it around slowly and show you a little bit of where we have come from. And you can also see these two, we call them bumboats or sampans today. This area is Boat Key, and it was the main trading area in the past during the colonial period. You can also notice perhaps a small curve where the camera is pointing. That is known as the belly of the carp. And among the Chinese, they believed that this was a very auspicious sign because it meant that there was going to be prosperity. Let me show you put up a few photographs of what this area looked like as late as the 60s, including pictures of Kavanaugh Bridge. So a lot of images, but hopefully they will add. And you can see the number of sampans or trading boats that were parked even as late as the 60s and 70s around here on the Singapore River. And this bridge had a little bit of a problem. And what was that problem? Well, when the engineer designed it, he designed it using measurements from low tide. So when it was high tide, all these boats, if they were fully laden, they couldn't pass underneath the bridge. They had to wait for low tide again. Certainly something that would in the past or would today be considered a big folly and lead to some heads being rolled. In front of you is Anderson Bridge. And the reason I'm turning around is to give you a view of the Fullerton Hotel as I walk away from it, because it's a beautiful, beautiful building. And any of you wanting to visit Singapore, in many ways, I think this is a preferred place to stay versus the Marina Bay Sands. The Marina Bay Sands, which we're also going to be seeing later on, is very nice, of course, in its own way, particularly if you enjoy gambling. But it tends to be a little bit of a crowded hotel. There are over 2,500 rooms at the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. As a result, even getting to breakfast can mean that you have to wait in line. Now, you're going to see a few hoardings and things up all over the place, and that's because we just celebrated the Singapore F1 Night Grand Prix, and so they are still slowly removing the items and bringing things back to normal, because the circuit, which is a city circuit, of course, Singapore only being a city, was right around here. So this is the old municipal building that you're seeing, the Asian Civilizations Museum today. And let's carry on. Some installation art outside the Asian Civilization Museum. You can probably see the beginnings of a clock tower at the back. That is the part of the Victoria Theatre and Concert Hall. That's the ACM, as we call it, or the Asian Civilizations Museum. These circular balls, shapes that you see in front of you, they have an audio recording inside them, and this is called a day in the life of. And what you can hear when you play the recording are essentially sounds relating to the everyday life in Singapore. So we've got sounds of the subway trains, traffic, and morning sounds at hawker centers where they sell street food, things like that. But now that I'm out of the tunnel and We are back. So I am going to take it vertical for you so that I can show you this Dalhousie obelisk. So in 3, 1, 2, 3. You probably hear the clock tower there. So this was an obelisk put up in the 1850s by the local residents, and it was put up to commemorate the visit of the governor of of India, to which Singapore was attached at the time. So I'm gonna take it back down to horizontal in 3. Let's see if I can get you a better shot. There we go. So in 3, 1, 2, 3, and take it a little bit forward because this is the Victoria Theatre and Concert Hall. I do apologize for all these structures on the right here. This was the seating overlooking the F1 circuit, because one of the roads that we're going to cross, in fact, was part of the circuit. Hopefully there will not be any impediments to us crossing it, because the F1 is now over. But this is the clock that you are hearing. So on the left, the building is the theater. On the right, the concert hall. Now, you might be a little bit surprised to note that these two buildings, the theater and the concert hall, were built 40 years apart. Yeah, so the one on the left, built in the 1860s, the one on the right, built right of the clock tower, built in the early 1900s. And the clock tower was kind of a neat disguise to bring these two buildings together in a seamless fashion. I'm going to put up 3 images as well, showing you Victoria Theatre Concert Hall, including the Dalhousie obelisk, including one where you see Japanese soldiers, after they have occupied Singapore, digging trenches in an open field very close to where we are today. Try and get a shot with the full clock tower for you. How's that? All right, so now, great, thank you, Dawn. Now let's see if we can find our way through this maze of construction and temporary seating and hoarding, because we want to get to the other side of the road, and I want to show you a few other things in this area. So remember, we've now crossed the road. We are in the Civic District side, which is the side where all the administrative buildings of the Singapore colonial period are located. But we will end up in an area where there's going to be commercial the contemporary architecture as well. All right, so it looks like we can cross over from here next to the Fullerton Hotel. So not a great picture for you right now, but I will put up a couple of more slides as I walk of the Fullerton Hotel, or what used to be the General Post Office building. Most of these buildings were built immediately prior to the start of the Second World War. So this is a better shot here. Give me a second to align my camera. So here we go. And let me slowly show you a view of the river. That is the bridge that we crossed. And you probably saw this bridge that I'm on now. Just give me 1 second again to align the camera. There we go. And you can see the buildings behind all around the Kavanaugh Bridge. They are part of the financial hub of Singapore. So these are mainly banks, insurance companies, things like that. The buildings are not that tall here in Singapore, the tallest being 280 meters. Because Singapore being a pretty small city, we have to be conscious of the airport and the landing route for towards the airport. So if you have buildings that are too tall, they may obstruct the landing. How small is Singapore? Well, it's pretty tiny. Let me show you how small it is in case you've not seen these before. So how's everyone doing? I do apologize for all the, yes, that's right, Wayne. I do apologize for all the disruptions caused by this hoarding and by the construction. It is part of the F1 that we have just completed. So that is the reason for this. Can I show you the gates you walk through? Well, how about the gates that you see in front of me? Would those do? Or because I've already walked, I'm not sure which gate you're referring to. Let me. Okay, I know what you're talking about now. You're talking about the arch, are you? The arch. Yeah, I can do that. Just give me a minute. You're talking about this arch, is that right? I'm sorry, I thought you were some sort of an F1 fan. So my apologies for that. There we go. There's an arch there. And I'll show you the one across the road as well. And this is Anderson Bridge. You can see it's already closed off to traffic, or at least part of it closed off to traffic. There's another arch there. I will show you that as well. Let me, in fact, take it vertical for you, and in case you're interested in this arch. So on 3, 1, 2, 3. How's that? All right. So I'll go back to horizontal. 1, 2, 3. And back through here. So on my right, what you're seeing here, this is used to be part of the boathouse. Because, of course, as you know, we were very close to the Singapore River and the quay where many of these ships were landing. This was the original home of the Merlion, but when this bridge that you are seeing in front of you, this big bridge was built, it was decided that the Merlion, which of course is the lion's head and the fish's body, that needed a clear view overlooking the bay, so the Merlion was moved And that is where we are heading now. All this that you see, this is fresh water, and this leads into the Marina Bay Reservoir, which provides almost 10% of Singapore's daily freshwater needs, both industrial and domestic. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this inaugural tour of Singapore After Dark. My name is Imran, and I am taking you on a walkabout through the civic and commercial districts of Singapore to see the light up that we have over here. And we're just about to see one of the highlights of the tour today, which is the Merlion. Maybe some of you have already seen the Merlion. The Merlion is Singapore's mascot, Singapore's symbol, and in true Singapore style, it is trademarked. So if you are opening, for example, a Singapore food restaurant somewhere, you want to put a Merlion in front of the restaurant just to let everyone know, well, you can't do that without permission from the tourism board because it's a patented image or a likeness. And before we get to the big Merlion, I'll show you the Merlion cub. So this is the Merlion Park where we are at. And this is the baby Merlion. In case people want, I'll give you a vertical of this little guy as well. Maybe it's a girl, gal, I'm not sure. I'll let you decide, but let me take it vertical as well. 1, 2, 3. And let's see if we can. How's that? Let me give you a profile of this guy or gal. Thank you very much, Jill. A tip is always very, very helpful. Helps me to put out more content on Heygo. All right, so I am going to go back horizontal in 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, and what do we have behind the Merlion? Well, we have all sorts of restaurants and al fresco dining. This is, of course, the Merlion cub, remember. Lion's head, fish's body. I'll explain that to you as well during our walk a bit later. You can see there is a little bit of a crowd here, even though it's a week night. And here we are beginning to see part of Singapore's magnificent skyline. Probably most of you will recognize that building if you've seen the movie Crazy Rich Asians. Give you a closer look, and then we'll also do a full pan from around the area. So this is the Marina Bay Sands, and the Marina Bay Sands, or the MBS Resort, is a casino complex. The 3 towers that you are seeing, hotels. The boat at the top has the infinity pool and the sky garden. Now, don't worry, I'm going to give you a better view of it without the solar panels a little bit later. Yeah, Richard, things keep changing over here. Right now, all this that we are seeing, everything that we are standing on, this is all reclaimed land. So even as recently as about 15, 20 years ago, you would have been seeing dredgers basically dredging up the sand and filling it up. That palm-shaped building that you are seeing, this one here, this is also part of Moshe Safdie's design MBS, Marina Bay Sands. It is known as the Art Science Museum. And some refer to it as a palm, others refer to it as a lotus flower. And as I slowly pan it around, we see the Singapore Flyer, and the MBS is connected to the Flyer using the Helix Bridge. If any of you have been on my daytime Marina Bay Sands shops tours, you will probably have seen these during the day, both the Art Science Museum and the Singapore Flyer. The Singapore Flyer is 165 meters, which makes it taller than the tallest hill we have here in Singapore. And that's the Helix Bridge, which connects it to the Art Science Museum. But let me give you some silence so you can enjoy the tranquility of this view as I slowly pan it. And I'll take it vertical for you in 3, 1, 2, 3. And back to horizontal in 1, 2, 3. Some of you might be wondering what that jackfruit type shaped building at the back is. That is part of the theaters, Esplanade Theaters on the Bay, which is an arts hub. And we're seeing one of the jackfruit shaped buildings because this is the concert hall. Behind it is the second one, which is the theater. Thank you very much, Terry. I'm glad you liked it. I hope you will be following me and also perhaps write a review. Let me post a few pictures for you showing you some of what we're seeing, and I'll also start walking. Thank you very much, Anne. Really appreciate it. Tips are always helpful. Helps me to put out more content on Hago. I'm going to take you on the other side of the Merlion Park, and we'll see a better view also of the Marina Bay Sands without all those pesky solar panels that were coming in our way. We will also, in a short while, be walking up this bridge that you see right in front of me. Up that bridge, this is known as the Jubilee Bridge, and it will take us to the other side where I will show you some more examples of colonial architecture. I mentioned the City Hall and the Supreme Court. Luckily, it is not so crowded that I am having to fight for space, but not also devoid of people. Maybe that will make a decent postcard. Good afternoon, Adam, and welcome everyone to this Singapore After Dark tour. My name is Imran, and we are walking around in the Marina Bay District right now of Singapore. Are there fish in there? Yes, there are fish in there, but fishing is not allowed here. We do have 17 reservoirs. You can think of them as artificial lakes here in Singapore, and in many of those, fishing is allowed. Singapore's history as a fishing village is also referred to by the Merlion in the fact that it's a fish's body. And the lion's head, well, Singapore is the lion city. Singa in Sanskrit, an old Indian language, means lion, and Pura means town or city. So Singapura is the lion city. Wayne said, I'm not sure I like that acronym, but but you're right. It is the acronym, another three-letter acronym for us to learn here in Singapore. But sad may not be the right way to look at it. Do they stock the artificial lakes? Initially, yes, they did. And the NParks, which is the agency that is responsible for them, also keep an eye on what is floating around in there in terms of invasive species that may come in from outside. We do have this skyline. This is the Marina Bay Financial District. This is the new financial district where we started, which was Commercial Square, now Raffles Place, is the old is the old commercial district. You may have had enough of this guy or gal, but I'll give you one vertical from here anyway. All right, so in one, two, three. Oops. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. Press the wrong button. Give me a minute and I will go vertical. My apologies. There we go. All right, so if you've got your balance back after that little accident, this. All right, so let me go back to horizontal in three, one, two, three. Okay, and so I'm gonna begin to. So hopefully you've got some decent postcards of this Marina Bay area, the Singapore Flyer. Yes, of course, Dawn. I am going to take you further up, and let's see his face for you. Let's show you his face or her face. So here is what I was showing you earlier, the Marina Bay Financial District. Notice all this is reclaimed land. You can see by this slide that I put up, all the red bits reclaimed land. And here he is, or she is, with all the business district buildings behind him. Let me show that to you. You can even see the Fullerton Hotel behind him. Remember, that was the General Post Office. And we have one of those river cruise boats pulling up. Yep, I'll do that, Dawn. I just want to show you these river cruise boats that are pulling up. This is one of their pickup points and drop-off points. So if you're ever in Singapore, you do want to take a river cruise, this is one of the places to take that. So let's zoom in on this guy. And maybe, would you like a vertical as well? Wayne, if I'm not mistaken, it's about $20 now, and it's about an hour long. There is commentary on it about many of the historical buildings that you see along the way in English and a few other languages. Let me take it vertical now. 1, 2, 3. And perhaps I will zoom in. How's that, Dawn? His head is a little bit dark, but all right. Okay, and so I will take it back to horizontal in 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, so let's continue with our walk. We are heading to our last destination, which is where the City Hall and Supreme Court buildings are. And this is the bridge that we're going to cross, the Jubilee Bridge, which takes us across to the Esplanade Theaters on the Bay, that building right there. Sure, Virginia, the rule of thirds, understand. I will do that for you next time. My gimbling skills are constantly, I'm trying to learn. So thank you for pointing that out to me. I should be doing that without needing you to let me know, but thank you. So this bridge that I'm walking on, which is the Jubilee Bridge, put up to celebrate Singapore's 50th anniversary, which was in 2015. Ah, uh, no, Virginia, you're right. I should have done that. I should have known that. Cheryl, thank you very much. But I'm not sure if you're being, if you're joking or being serious. I have been trying and practicing for quite a while now, so it should be improving. Once we get to the middle of the bridge, I will pause and take another turn back to the Marina Bay Sands. All right, so I'm gonna pause here, turn around, go back to the MBS. They're having a little bit of a play with the fountains. Let me see if I can zoom in to show it to you. You might be able to see it there. Thank you, Dawn. Hopefully there'll be more. Would you like me to stay zoomed in? You can see some of the fountain work going on there. Perhaps you might even be able to hear the music. On the palm structure, by that you mean the uh, the Art Science Museum, that lotus. There you go. Yep, it's also called the palm, having a senior moment there. Yep, they keep changing the colors, and in fact, the three buildings, which are the hotels, towers, they also, the lights on the windows will also keep changing. So if we had the video function on the Hago app, this would be a video moment. I think that might be the end of that. Yep, you can give you one more final look at the Merlion as well since we're up here. It's got that one vehicle light behind him, which is kind of. So there he is again, Singapore's mascot, the Merlion, celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Some of you may have noticed also there was a tour about its light up on the 50th anniversary. So let's carry on. Here we have the Fullerton Hotel again, and you can see all the hoardings and construction because the fencing is there for the F1. Yeah, Dawn, I think Kat did it. I didn't really get to see it myself, but it must have been wonderful. I know she's also been doing a number of very nice food tours. So perhaps some of you have been on those food tours as well. Our food here is very famous, our street food. I do take you through a few hawker centers on my Chinatown and Little India tours as well. Wonderful. So the Singapore Tourism Board now is even creating locations for Instagrammable purposes because, of course, it really drives travel to a large extent among a certain segment. Yeah, Virginia, we over here, I think Kat has probably done a food tour with durians. So over here, we refer to this as the durian. And Richard, you're asking, what is that building? That is the concert hall of the Esplanade Theatres on the Bay. There's a second building on the behind this, and that is the theater. It's basically the arts hub. I did put up a slide of it, the way it looks during the day. Let me see if I can find that, and also what it is like from the inside, because we do have a lot of concerts in there, which I myself like to attend. So you can see there, when it was designed, it was meant to resemble the mic head, an old-fashioned microphone head, because it's the arts hub. So here we have another view of the flyer, as well as the Helix Bridge. And of course, we just can't get away from this building. Initially, when it first came up, I used to think it was a little bit of an eyesore. But not only do we get used to it, but we actually start to appreciate. Yes, Dawn, absolutely, you're right. So, anyone else with any comments or nicknames for buildings that they might have seen? Great. All right, so I'm going to take you now through a little tunnel, and we're going to go from contemporary Singapore to 2020s back into the colonial period. Richard, you ask how powered. Well, most of the electricity here is generated using natural gas. No problem, Anne. Any of you, it was wonderful for you to be there. So, Richard, natural gas is the main source of electricity generation for us here in Singapore. However, of course, we are trying to go green, so renewables are becoming a greater part of the electricity mix over here. Much of our natural gas comes through a pipeline from Indonesia. We are very close to Indonesia, if you saw on that earlier map. So thank you all for joining. I do want to show you a couple of more buildings. Of course, if you have to go, you have to go. Thank you for taking the time to join me. And just to remind you, in case you arrived late, this is Singapore After Dark, or as someone put it, the sad tour. Hopefully it's not been a sad but entertaining tour. And we have been walking basically very close to the Singapore River, the South Bank as well as the North Bank, and we are now in the North Bank where the Civic District is. And I do want to show you a few buildings from the Civic District. So we've crossed the tunnel, and going to take you to a place where hopefully the hoarding and all those structures will not cover our view. Thank you, Richard. It would be wonderful if you could post some of them up on Facebook. It's always nice to get a little bit of positive publicity as well, and also hopefully to share our what we saw and what we enjoyed ourselves. So thank you for that. It's just coming up to 8:30 p.m. in Singapore, and it was, when I started the tour, it was 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 28 degrees Celsius. Let me walk through this little lane and see if I can get you a view of the City Hall and Supreme Court building. Yes, very warm and humid. It was raining all day today. Quite heavy rain in the morning, but it has been dry throughout this tour. And so hopefully I'm not scaring you as a ghost-like figure here. We are going to get to the padang, which is the Malay word for field, very soon. Sure, of course. Please do leave a page, a link, Richard, no problem. All right, so here I'm going to turn it around again so we can see something. And let's see what I can show you here. What is visible to us? So you can see this building. Let me go ahead so I can cut out this little structure here. This is the former Supreme Court building. And the buildings that I'm showing you now, built in the 1930s, in fact, right before the Second World War hit Singapore and the rest of the world. So that is the former Supreme Court building. And stay safe, Adam. Behind that, maybe some of you can see a kind of a flying saucer. Can you see that? That is the observation tower of the new Supreme Court building. So we have basically only two domes in Singapore. This is one of them with the former Supreme Court. And as I slowly pan it right, we go past the seating again of the F1. This was prime seating here. You will see a sign for the National Gallery. Let me walk a little bit to my right. This was the City Hall building. And I'm walking on a grass field, which we refer to as the Padang, which is a protected grass field. It is not allowed to be built upon. So, you may have heard of these various squares in different cities where a lot of historical events have taken place. These revolutions are started there. Well, this is the place for us here in Singapore. Many important things have happened over here in this field, which we name field, padang, Malay word for field. Let me take it back. So this is the City Hall and the Supreme Court. Now, these are two distinct buildings, but they have been joined together through a design when they were converted into the National Gallery of Singapore. I'm going to show you some images of these buildings so you can see how important they are also. So this is some historic images of the building. And the history, what I've shown you is there's one photograph of Singapore's first Prime Minister, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, making a declaration of independence on the steps of City Hall. And then also we've got the signing of the surrender document by the Japanese at the announcement of that surrender at the City Hall. There was more than one surrender. This one took place here, in which Lord Mountbatten, representing the Commonwealth and Allied forces, officiated. Yeah, Richard, good question. I'm not sure I'm going to dabble in that. He was alive when the the casino was opened, but I'm not really sure what he would think of a lot of the other things that are going on. However, he laid the groundwork, and so we definitely have a lot of positive momentum as we go forward. Thank you, Virginia. I hope that you can get your mom to do this tour. And this basically leads us to wrapping up and ending the tour. Let me see if I can become more than a ghost for you so you can actually see some of my face. This field, by the way, was also where a number of the concerts took place over the weekend that the F1 organizers had arranged for. And there was an article in the paper today in which many people who had really dressed up very nicely for the concerts, they had these very expensive shoes on, Prada, Gucci shoes, and they were all ruined because it poured and rained for a couple of hours right before the F1 and the concert. So they walked around this field and had basically no way to escape ruining their shoes. So with that, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to join me on this Singapore After Dark tour, the inaugural tour. So hopefully it will get better with time. Those of you who left a tip, thank you very much. If you can leave a tip, please do. It really helps me to promote more content on Hago. If you are able, if you enjoyed it and you're able to write a review, that is also helpful, or post something on Facebook. And follow me, and I will be putting out more tours of Singapore in the coming weeks. All right, so unless there are any final questions or comments from people, I'm going to be signing off. Any questions, comments? No? All right, great. Well, thank you very much, all of you, and have a great afternoon, evening, morning, day, night, wherever you are. This is such a global community that a good day probably is the best way, best neutral way. All right, so thank you, and this is Imran from Singapore signing out. Bye-bye.